Well, good morning on this beautiful but snowy Monday morning. I hope you're all having a very nice, warm morning. And I came out here with the pups because they wanted out. I think this is going to make trip number 3, and it's like not even 10 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, they like the snow, and the wind has died down, thank God. It is still a little breezy, but not like it was. And this is definitely a sweatpants, comfortable kind of day. Not going anywhere, not doing much of anything. Maybe clean up the house a little bit. I probably should run the vacuum. And thinking about making something warm and yummy for a cold winter day like today. But anyways, I will talk to you later, and you have a great one. I turned around after I turned the camera off to go in the house, and there was Mindy Lou. She was laying in the snow. Yeah. Like I said yesterday, they're the only ones happy about the snow. Well, I decided that I am going to make some potato soup. I'm going to vary this a little bit because I don't have any celery. I have no idea why I didn't buy celery. How many times I've been to the store the last 7 days. I'm not running out in this weather. So I'm just going to use some celery seed to replace that. And so anyways, I'll get my stuff out and I'll show you how I do it. Okay, I had purchased some little tiny red potatoes. They're very little. And all I did was wash them and cut them in half. And I have approximately 5 cups in here of potatoes. So I'm going to bring these to a boil, and then I am going to just drain them and set them aside as I make the other stuff. So now what we're going to do is we have our 6 cups of chicken broth. I don't even have this heated up. I just have it sitting here measured out in the pan. And 1 medium chopped onion, stick and a half of butter, 3/4 cup of flour, 1 cup milk, 1 cup half and half. This is my bacon. This is a pound of bacon that it's the thick sliced bacon that I just cut up while it was raw, threw all those pieces into a pan, stirred it up, let it get nice and crispy, drained it, let it cool, put it in that bag, and then just kind of hit it to break it up a little bit more. I don't want it to be too broken up. I still want it to be somewhat pieces, so that's ready to go. And the only thing that I really should have that's not right here is the parsley, which I forgot to get out, and the celery. I'm supposed to have a cup of celery. I do not have any celery, so I'm going to be substituting celery seed. But you have to be very careful because celery seed is not celery. Celery seed will be very strong. So even though my recipe calls for a whole cup of finely chopped celery, I'm going to be using less than a teaspoon of that celery salt because that's how strong it is. A lot of people tell you not to substitute it because it doesn't taste like celery, and there is a slight difference, but I have potatoes, I have chicken broth, I have milk, I have cream, I have onions, I have bacon. I have a lot of flavors going in here, and I do not believe, at least I'm hoping, that that should not be a problem. The biggest problem is people don't realize just how little of celery seed you need to substitute for fresh celery. So that being said, what I'm going to do now is, as you can see, my potatoes are boiling. I probably should give them a poke to see if they're done. They're just about done. But I am going to put my butter, my stick and a half of butter in here. And I am going to turn it on, and wrong burner. So that's helpful if you have the right burner, right? And I'm going to melt it. You have to be careful that you do not burn your butter. And once it's melted, I am going to add my 2/3 cup of flour and stir that all in the butter, and then I will gradually whisk in the milk and half mixture. Okay, you can see that my butter is all melted, and it's also on kind of a medium-low flame, and I'm probably going to pretty much keep it at that. So I'm going to add, if I can hold the camera and do this at the same time, is my flour. And, oh, sorry, I have to reach for the whisk here. So, and I'm just going to stir that around and get that, as you can see, kind of just thickens right up. And now I am going to gradually add my milk, but I am going to have to set this camera down for a moment. And as you can see, as I am really gradually adding this milk. This is not being dumped in a lot at one time. Probably in about half cup measures into there. That's just an approximate. You don't have to measure it like that. I'm just giving you an idea if you've never made a thick white sauce, because that's actually what this is. It's just considered a thick white sauce. And you could have went ahead and added your spices into this now, but I just find it a lot easier to make sure that it's creamy and not getting lumpy, because you know how flour can be. I just find it easier to add those spices after I know I've really got this nice and creamy, and that it's not, you know, getting lumpy on me. So, and as you can see, even though it's a lot thinner right now, I can still go ahead and add the rest of this milk, because the whole purpose of adding the milk slowly is so that you don't get lumps. And I don't have any lumps. So now I'm just going to cook this, whisking this as it cooks, and it's going to thicken up. And I will show you what that looks like when it's done. Now, one of the things I forgot to say is I went ahead and I drained my potatoes because they were done, and I make sure that they are not cooked too much, just cooked to nice and tender. So I've dumped that measured amount of broth into this pan here, and I'm just going to dump my onion into that also. And I turned it on a high flame so that it can start to cook up, and that's just going to continue cooking. And here, as you can see, as I took the time to talk to you, that you have to be very careful. You know, if I would have left it probably another 30 or 40 seconds, it really could have burned, or it could have started to get lumpy. So you do have to you should really stir it, especially the whole time, I should say, especially if it's something that you've never made before, just so that you can kind of get the feel for it, because you can kind of leave it for, 15, 20 seconds, but if you've never made it before, you kind of need to know how that's going to look so that you don't get it lumpy. But we're just going to continue whisking that, and it should get nice and thick, because that's a lot of flour in there for just 2 cups of milk. But I'm making it a lot thicker because it's going to be added to all that broth, so it needs to get thicker. Okay, see how thick that is? That is how we want it to be. So I just have it right now on an extremely low flame. And in this little bowl here is where I put my little bit less than a teaspoon of celery salt. I put in a heaping tablespoon of parsley and a half a teaspoon of salt. And the only reason I put in a half a teaspoon of salt is because I would rather add the salt later after I have everything made and together than to make it too salty. Okay, so what I did is I've just taken part of my cream mixture like this, and I've just put it in there, and then I whisk it around. Because sometimes what happens is it gets lumpy if you add it all at one time. So that's why I'm doing it as I am. So I'm just adding a little bit at a time. Well, more than a little bit. I mean, it's just quite a big, that's quite a big spoonful, so I'm just stirring it around. Whoops, sorry. And I will continue to do that until that mixture is completely incorporated into this broth mixture. So now I have incorporated all of that flour mixture in with the broth. And yeah, I moved it over to this burner because actually the burner on that side over here is a power burner. It's a lot bigger, gives a bigger flame, so I don't really need it to be cooking that hot, because that even on low is hotter than this burner on medium. So that's kind of why I went ahead and I moved this over here. So I'm just going to let this very slowly heat up to just about where it's going to start to simmer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to add that bacon. So we'll see how good I am at holding this camera and dumping this bag of bacon. And I'm not good at it at all. Gonna have to stop for a sec. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. But yeah, that was, and you know what? I'm always surprised how a pound of bacon looks like so much bacon, but once you cook it all down and you crumble it into pieces, it hardly looks like anything at all. So truly, you need at least 12 ounces, preferably a whole pound, which would be 16 ounces of bacon, in order to really, you know, incorporate that bacon flavor through this much. But yep, that's where we're at here. I'm just going to let this thicken up, and then I am going to throw those potatoes in here, and we should be good to go. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dump these potatoes into my soup. And whoop, one more there. Can't leave him out. And give that a stir. And you see how much darker the bacon has made that cream sauce. I don't know if it's going to show up on the camera, but it used to be really white and now it's like a tan. And that's the bacon. I'm just going to put it on this back burner back here because this is my simmer burner. I can put it on low and it will barely keep this soup at a simmer. So that's what I'm going to do. It's just a very, very low flame, and it will just let me keep this soup right where I want it to be. Oh, you know what? Actually, you probably could serve it now, but to really get these flavors blended, I say at least 45 minutes of it on a very, like I said, a low heat. You can even put this in a crock pot. That works. I've done that many a times just because I wanted to clean up everything and didn't want to bother. But, yep. So we're just going to let this incorporate all those wonderful flavors in there, and actually I'm going to take a little taste and see what that tastes like, and I will talk to you after a bit. Well, I think it's pretty yummy. Anyways, I'm sure I'm a little bit biased considering it's my own recipe, but anyways, I will get back to you later on today, and I will put that recipe in the description below if you would like to give it a shot, and I'll talk to you after a bit. Well, good evening. I certainly hope everybody had a really good day. Here it was still cold, and the wind started blowing a bit, but we didn't get any more snow, and we didn't get any sleet, so that was a good thing. I did want to talk to you. I wanted to read you part of a verse that is found in Philippians, and it's Philippians 2:3. And in the New King James Version, it says, "Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself." In the New Living Translation, the last part of that verse reads this way: "Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. And I like that for a couple reasons. I don't know if any of you read my blog that I posted, but in the blog, one of the scenarios I gave was a woman that had been in front of me at the checkout counter, and she had carefully placed all of her grocery items, her bread and her fruits and her vegetables and all that, very carefully up on the conveyor. And she got a text, and she's looking down at her phone, and she's reading the phone. And suddenly her whole countenance changes. Her whole demeanor changes. I can even see her body stiffen. And this same woman who had just so carefully set everything up there so that when they would get scanned through would, not be smashed or anything or bruised, now was taking the bags that the cashier had just carefully packed and was just tossing them into her cart, one on top of each other, with no care whatsoever of the damage that's going to be done to the produce and the bread and everything else that's in those bags. And she just hurried right out. Clearly, that was a woman that had some bad news. And what was important to her at that moment had changed. And I think that what happens lots of times in our lives is that we get frustrated with people. And that's kind of where I wanted to go. Because had that have been me 15 years ago, I would have been rolling my eyes at her. I would have just not even I would have just thought the lady was batty. But now that I have gone through certain difficulties in my life, I am able to have patience and understanding, and I'm able to look at that situation and not be critical, but realize that there goes a woman who is facing a difficulty in whatever it may be. I have no idea what it would be, but I know that she's facing a difficulty, and I care. And I think that that's what that verse in Philippians is trying to tell us. We, as Christ followers, we need to be aware that it's not all about us. In fact, it's not really about us at all, is it? Now, the next verse I want to read, we're going to find in Philippians. And it is Philippians 4, verse 8. And this is coming out of the New King James Version. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. And I think that we need to think about what that is saying, because this list is exactly where our thoughts should be. If your mind is going down like mine would have with that lady years ago, had that have been me years ago, rolling my eyes thinking, that lady's a nut, I'm not thinking the right things, am I? I am not thinking about whatever things are pure or whatever things are good or true. Now, she might not have been displaying noble behavior, but that's not the point. The point is that my thoughts about her, my attitude about her can go two ways. One of positive that says, there's a woman who's facing a difficulty, and have sympathy and go to prayer for her. Or I can be the person that's going to roll my eyes and be critical and say, well, there's a nutcase. I have a choice. But the Bible is very clear on what the choice should be. Another verse that I want to read to you is going to be in Colossians verses 12, 13, and 14 of chapter 3 of Colossians. And again, it's in the New King James. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another and forgiving one another if anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, you also must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection. And it's the last part, that verse 14 that says, above all things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection. Love is the key to everything. And so I encourage you, the next time that you get frustrated with somebody, whether it be a stranger or a family member, a friend or a neighbor, it doesn't matter, or a coworker, the next time that you have feelings where you want to roll your eyes at them or look down upon them or dismiss them as unimportant, whatever the case might be, ask yourself, are you putting on love? What I always ask myself is, what does the law of love tell me to do? What does the law of love tell me to think, to say, to feel, to do, to be? Any of those scenarios. Because that's what it's all about. It's all about putting on love, which is the bond of perfection. And the only way we can get that kind of love is from Jesus Christ, because he's the one that's demonstrated that kind of love to us. And so I encourage you, ask yourself that question. And remember, life happens. Let's enjoy it. One of the ways that we can truly enjoy it is to love the way Christ loved us. God bless. Talk to you tomorrow.